going to cover the topic of demand forecasting under the business economics. I'll add the index in the description followed by the explanation link. Let's get started. So what is the concept of demand forecasting? So it simply says that the process of predicting future demand. So because we are predicting the future, we can take the relevant decision, business decision like planning, purchasing, managing funds or inventory, labor, okay, and it can be done internally and externally by various processes. But just for a basic level example, internally it can be done by a method called guess estimate, and by externally through some agencies. Okay, so we are going to see what is that concept in depth, followed by some of the techniques which we can use to forecast. Like now, next we have levels of forecasting. So first is the firm level. So firm level means we are choosing any specific organization. We are talking about that. We are talking about its past trends, and we are talking about its current trends and trying to predict the future. So here we are talking about the specific company, specific organization. Next, coming to industry level. So when we are talking about any company in the previous firm level, so that will be belong to some of the other industry level. So suppose we are taking one textile shop, okay, that we are talking at a firm level, but the complete textile of the industry is the industry level. So you are getting my point, I guess, right? So that's the difference between firm and industry level. So industry level will have a different techniques, and the way we forecast will be different compared to what we do at the firm level. So what we can say at the industry level is it is the collective demand for products and services of all organizations in specific industries like rubber, pharma, textile, etc. Now coming to economic level, so it will be dealt at the country level. So we came from firm, then industry, now we are dealing with the economic level. So economic level will cover all the industries. So for example, index of industrialization, okay, the license liberalization, all these things, the custom duties, imports, exports, okay, income, employment, all these things will cover under the economic level. Next we have time period involved. So the forecasting, we have seen the levels of forecasting. Now we will see forecasting is done for short term and long term as well. So short term means it will be 6 months to 1 year, like discounts, and long term means which will be like more than 1 year. So when coming to short term forecasting, our variables will be different compared to what we have long term. Why? Because in short term everything is not going to change, like labor may change, okay, one new construction might start, but the end-to-end thing that is involved in the manufacturing will not change. But in long term everything might change, so there will be all values of all variables will be changed. But in short term it's like we'll have one or two inputs of production which is varying, remaining all will be same. So that we will consider while using or while considering the methods which considers time as one of the factor. Now the third is the nature of products. So consumer goods means the goods which are directly consumed by the consumers. Next we have capital goods, which we can say act as a raw material for the consumer goods. Okay, yeah. So either it is a raw good or we can say derived good. So I hope you know what is the derived good. So the consumer goods like car we are buying, and for running the car we need petrol or diesel or something. So that will be derived good. Now need for demand forecasting. So it is a very self-explanatory thing. For producing the desired output, assessing the probable demand, forecasting, better controls, inventory controlling, manpower requirement, ensuring stability, ensuring import export. So all this, like most of these points we can do without forecasting as well, but to do it optimally, like we can make sure that manpower, we never face a shortage of manpower, but unnecessary having the manpower will not be an optimal methodology. So in those cases demand forecasting plays a vital role. Next we have factors influencing demand forecasting. So while doing the demand forecasting, the current prevailing conditions, okay, the existing industry conditions, because we can see we have different levels of competitions, and in that competition what is the phase that our specific organization is going through, then existing condition of an organization, production policies, financial policies, and then we have market conditions, sociological conditions, psychological conditions, like in which country our company established, and that country people have what kind of cultures, tastes, habits, preferences. Now the competitive condition, import export policies. So here we consider the political conditions as well, government policies as well. So all these things which affect the demand forecasting that we have studied, because while forecasting we need to make sure that the forecasting result might be varied because of one of these factors which could influence the result. Okay, so next we have steps in demand forecasting. So here we want to know what is it that we want to forecast, so that objective will be specified. Then we determine whether we are doing it for a long term or a short term. Once that is determined, we have n number of other methods based on the time differentiation as well. Okay, and after that we choose the most appropriate method of forecasting, and then based on that, if we have data, okay, we use that. Otherwise we go for other methods based on what are the things that we have and what are the prerequisites of the method that we have choose. So based on that we analyze the data, and finally the outcomes that we get from that analyzation we interpret. So it is as simple as that. Specify the object, determine the time, select the appropriate method, collect and analyze the data, and finally interpret the outcomes. Now coming to the techniques of demand forecasting. So here we have two types of on the parent level. One is the qualitative, another is the quantitative. So qualitative has survey methods, opinion polls, and one more which is, okay, that is a subcategory of opinion polls, right? So survey methods has two things. One is the complete enumeration survey, and the second is sample survey. So what is that? We'll study in a moment. Okay, so the first method is complete enumeration survey, which is also known as our census method. So in this what we do is we find our potential customers and we try to make them complete some surveys, and based on that we try to find the aggregate of all. Okay, so it's like after the surveys are filled by the experts, we try to get, okay, on the first expert survey we are getting through this decision. Like that we come to different kind of decisions on everyone's survey. Finally we try to aggregate them and consolidate and come to a common conclusion, which we consider as a forecast. Okay, so that was a complete enumeration survey. Now the similar kind of things happen in the sample surveys, but in sample surveys what happens, suppose I have like 1 lakh customer base for example, but I am taking suppose 1000 people, which I call it as a sample survey. So for 1000 people I will give some questionnaire or some kind of survey, something or the other, and based on their survey fillings I'll come to conclusions, and whatever the outputs I'm getting from this 1000 people I'll try to aggregate that, I'll try to sum that, and finally I'll divide by 1000. That is, I'm taking average decision of all the decisions came from the 1000 surveys. Now finally I'll multiply the decision with 1 lakh. So in this manner the demand forecasting is done in the sample surveys. Next we have opinion polls. So opinion polls is done for the short term thing. Now in this, the first method is Salesforce composite. Now in Salesforce composite what happens is we have suppose salesmen in every area, right? So we give surveys to those salespersons and we make them to fill those surveys by the people living in those areas. Now finally based on the surveys we can say that we are able to identify what is the perspective, what are the demands created by each of the societies, and that's how salesperson can come to a conclusion and give that decision to the organization. So here basically salesperson is going to the end user, is making them to complete the survey, is getting the result, coming to a conclusion, and that he is telling to the organization. So in that manner we are coming to a decision in Salesforce composite method. Next we have Delphi method. So here what we do is we have 10 steps to come to a conclusion. First is we find the subject matter experts, and then what we do is we develop questionnaires and we check the validity, we in the sense the experts who were selected, and then the first level questionnaire is prepared, and this first level questionnaire is prepared and it is given to the participants and the result is analyzed. Then the second level questionnaire is developed. Now again it is distributed to the second level participants, analyzed, and finally the report is generated with the conclusions and recommendations. So that is what our Delphi method is. Now finally and this is the test marketing is the last under opinion polls. And in test marketing what happens is the product launchers, right, they go directly to the market, and instead of launching their product at a very high scale they'll have a small campaign created, and in that campaign they'll focus on a specific strata of the people and they'll try to sell it. Based on that they'll come to a conclusion like what will be the effect when we launch the product in the big market. So this is how they try to find the feedback of a product. So that was our first thing, that was that is qualitative techniques. Now we are focusing on quantitative techniques. So if you see, quantitative techniques are using the statistical tools, and it is meant for long run. So long run means for not all methods will be doing for long run, but most of the quantitative techniques are meant for long run. Okay. So in that we have first is time series analysis. So in time series analysis we have four components to consider, because time series analysis, what it does is it considers the events that happened in the history, the events that is happening now, and it assumes that those events will be repeating again and again after certain interval, and will be repeated in the future. So that's how it analyzes. But there are certain factors, the four factors that you can see: secular trend, cyclic variation, seasonal variation, irregular variation. So there are some factors which will affect the time series. Okay, so we are going to look at this four factors one by one, but basically time series analysis will use the various tools and economic policies and all to come to a conclusion. So first is a secular trend. So in secular trend we use least square method to find the conclusion or forecasting decisions. So here what happens is graph moves up and down whatever it is, but because of specific event, okay, because of specific incident, the graph, instead of moving the way it is expected, it is moving in some other specific direction because of some event that has happened. For example, new tech came, for example new production technology used, for example employment level had a drastic change. So that is called as secular trend. So graph is moving in a particular direction just because of one incident that happened at that moment. Okay, next we have cyclical variation. So this we have studied previously. This is similar to business cycle but not exactly, because the names are a bit different. So in cyclic variations we have four phases. One is the peak phase, then recession, then depression, then recovery. So this cycle will repeat again and again, but there is no fixed duration that in what duration this cycle is going to repeat again and again. So this cycle is the basis of the cyclic variation, and it is meant for a long term. Okay, next we have seasonal variation. Now this is a self-explanatory thing. We can see that there is a variation in the normal graph just because of some festivals or rituals, okay, or weathers, climate. So these are the seasonal factors which is affecting our time series analysis. So for example, we have taken the demand for mangoes, umbrellas, like mangoes in one season, demand for umbrellas in rainy season. So that's how we have effect on our demand based on seasonal variation. Next is the irregular variations. So this is the final component in the time series analysis which is completely unpredictable. So this might happen anytime, anywhere, might be because of any reason. For example, earthquake, flood, famines. So this causes one of the irregular pattern in the graph. So that was our quantitative techniques. Next, now after that we have smoothing techniques. So there are too much loopholes in the time series analysis because there are too many assumptions, there are too many factors which might lead into a non-realistic result or non-realistic forecasting. So that's why we have smoothing techniques. So it will eliminate random variation from historical demand that we came across in the time series analysis, and this helps in identifying demand pattern and demand levels that can be used to estimate future demand. Okay, let's come to the point. So first is the moving average method. So here what we do is like suppose you are asked to calculate the 2-period moving average method. So in that what we do is we consider the previous year's what we can say, we consider the previous year forecast, this year forecast, and we divide it by 2 in the case of 2-period moving average method, and whatever the point we are getting, the average we are getting, that we expect for the next year. So that's how it goes. If we are given that the trend following is the 3 moving average series, okay, so in that case what we do, we take the average of this year, previous year, and previous to previous year. We sum all those 3 and we divide by 3, and then the average that we got, we assume this average is going to be happen in the next year. So that's how we have moving average method for a specific period. Might be 2 years, 3 years, anything, but generally it is used for 2 years. Next we have barometric methods. So barometric methods, again it is different. So what happens in this, it uses various statistical tools along with the economic policies. Okay, now coming to economic policies means it will be making use of economic variables. So those variables include economic policies, government policies, employment level, income level, and various other economic variables. Okay, So this is much more reliable than compared to the previous methods that we have studied so far, and not only because it uses the what we can say specialized tool and economic patterns, but it also doesn't considers data which might be misleading thing. Okay, so the famous methods under this is our single regression analysis or multilinear regression analysis. Okay, let's get to the point. So that was our that was our econometric method. My bad. So this single regression analysis, multi regression analysis, all those will come under our econometric methods. Now let's read about barometric method. So barometric method, what it does is it considers the event that happened in the past and the events that are happening now. So based on that, and it will have one more factor, that is the statistical and economic indicator to find or to forecast the future trends. Okay, so that is known as barometric trends, and it is also known as leading indicator approach. Okay, our first category is leading indicator, but barometric method is also known as leading indicator approach. So first is leading indicator. So when the event that has already happened in the past, based on which we are predicting, then we call it as a leading indicator, because here it has predicted very before the actual thing has happened. So for example, the profit that we can get after tax. Next we have coincident indicator. So coincident indicators means the one that we are predicting and the one that is happening are on the same timeline. We can say are happening at the same time. So what is the use of coincident indicators when it is happening and we are predicting? So it says that what you are predicting is correct. So this method is used for confirming that our current scenario is going as per what we are predicting. Okay, so for example, number of employees in the agriculture or non-agricultural sector, per capita income, rate of unemployment. Then lagging indicators, so it follows an event and confirms that pattern is occurring. Okay, so this is a bit similar to coincident indicator. So what in coincident indicator, the thing that we are assume and the thing that we are that is happening is at the same time, but lagging indicator is like it is happening but we have predicted in past. So don't confuse it with leading indicators. So leading indicators has also done the similar kind of thing, but it tries to predict what is happened in the future, and lagging indicator is predicted and kept, but it is again just for confirming, similar to that of coincident indicator. So lagging indicators says like, okay, at this point of time we are going to have the unemployment in this range as per what we have predicted, and that is there, but it is of no use. We are just going to confirm that if this is the state, this is how we are going to get affected. So the best example is unemployment. Here we are simply saying, okay, this is the range in which the unemployment is going to happen, and after some time we see that is happening. So in that case we have lagging indicator. So name itself suggests leading means already leading means talks about future, coincident means talks about present, lagging means talks about what we have done in past and happened and happening. Okay, not happened, happening. So those three are the methods of barometric method. So all these methods we used for our forecasting purpose. Now coming to econometric methods, which I have explained before barometric methods, my bad, that was my bad. So it uses economic policies and statistical tools, and avoids much of the unrelevant data to avoid most of the misleading results. So two methods in that were the simple linear regression and the multilinear regression. So if we have suppose one independent variable and one dependent variable, okay, so what does that mean is, dependent variable means the value of the dependent variable will be based upon what is the value of independent variable. So if we take an example that quantity demanded is dependent on the price of the commodity, so we can vary the price of commodity, and we can vary means it is an independent, and based on that we are getting the output quantity demanded. So Q is a function of price. So that is our simple linear regression. Now if you see, we have only one independent variable here. So what we are assuming that remaining all other variables which might affect are constant. So simple linear regression is not that much reliable. But coming to multilinear regression, we are saying that nothing is constant, or we can say more than one variable which we assume to be constant, we are not taking that as constant. Now it will, as the economic is dynamics, we are making all the other variables as dynamic as well. So you can change all the other variables as well. That means all the other variables are all becoming independent and the dependent variable is 1. So here we have the demand as one dependent variable and we have multiple independent variables whose value we can change as per our need to forecast what could be the demand. So here demand is function of multiple independent variables, unlike in simple linear regression we have demand which is a function of one independent variable. Yeah, so that was our regression analysis. Next we have limitations of demand forecasting. So lack of historical data. Okay, so if suppose a new product has to be launched, it doesn't have any historical data, right? So that is one loophole, and we can say even the product is old, it is not necessary that all the data you want is available for the product, because it was maintained for so long and the thing that you required and the data they have stored might be different. So this is one of the limitations. Then we have unrealistic assumptions. So many assumptions might not be consistent. So it's not like, okay, today it is growing, tomorrow it went high, then day after tomorrow it might go like a skyrocket thing. That cannot be possible, because the trends, the advertisement, the competition might change at any point of time. So the unrealistic assumptions are again a limitation of demand forecasting. Next, cost incurred. So the cost that is incurred in doing any kind of surveys or time series analysis, the training that is given, the expertise that is required, so all these things require a huge amount of investments. So again, that could be a, like, if it is forecasting is very good and it is very reliable for long period, then big companies can afford it, but for small companies, startups, it could be a bit costly. Okay, then we have change in fashion. So forecasting is based upon what is happening and what has happened, but change in fashion is like a new thing is coming up in the market which our forecasting was not aware, so definitely the result will be misleading. Next we have lack of expertise. Okay, so again it is related to cost incurred. If you want the expertise to do the forecasting, the amount that you need to invest will be much more, and if you cannot afford it and you try to forecast with some non-expert or noob, then he might provide you with the some we can say unrealistic forecasting, and which could lead to huge loss to organization. Then we have psychological factors. Okay, so factors like fear, war, change in government or economic policies. So these again make the consumer non-rational, but the assumption of a demand was that the consumer is rational. So again this is affecting our forecasting graph. So these are some of the limitations, but we have a number of other limitations as well. Now criteria for good demand forecasting is it should be as close to reality as possible. The more data we have, the more appropriate method we choose. Okay, so all these factors will be playing a major role in getting to the accurate data. Then we have timeliness. So whether we are choosing it for short term or long term, and if we are choosing it for long term, what kind of data we are having, because everything is very dynamic. So we should be as quick as possible, and we should be like the data that we are giving should be as close to reality as possible. But still we cannot be sure that the thing that we have forecasted is absolutely fine. So demand for new product which has to be released in a week can't use time series. That was, yes, one of the loophole. Now the affordability that we have seen, that if someone is expertise on that, okay, and if you want the other organization to make use of that tool or that expertise person, he should be affordable, or the method should be affordable, and making sure that the outcome is not compromised. Okay, and the final thing, the forecasting and all we are doing so that it could be interpreted and the decision making could become helpful. Now if that is not easy, then what is the use of forecast? Then we have something called flexibility. So that would be necessary condition for making an effective forecasting. Now why we are saying flexibility is because today we have one kind of data, tomorrow we might have one other kind of data. So we should not stick or tightly coupled with any specific method based on our requirement, based on our timeliness, based on other factors. We should be able to change to other methods as well. Ease in using available data. So as we have said, we have the past data available, but if it is not in the correct format, if it is not what we wanted, or if the proper data is not stored, or is it manipulated, so all those things will make the data invalidate, and even though it is available, it is virtually available only. Okay, now forecast should use simple yet effective method of forecasting. Next we have ease of use. So ease of use again considers interpretation, okay. And ease of use basically says how we can implement the methods to forecast. And then we have like ease of use, we can say the parent category of interpretation, implementation, affordability. So everything will come under the ease of use. Next we have reliability. So if we are putting too much investment in a specific forecasting, and if it is if the outcome is only for short term, then there is no use. The time which will take for the decision, by the time the output will become invalid, so there is no use. So the more duration the output relies, the more reliable the method is. Next we have durability of outcomes. So forecast result should be valid in long run, okay. So yeah, here I correct. So if the we can say if the output is for long run and it is valid for long run, then we call it as a durable. The explanation that I got previously for reliability was I was confused with durability and reliability. But reliability is when we say that something we have used in past and the method was really helpful with the affordability factor or with the flexibility factor, the result that we got, that is accuracy, and the duration for which it was, like the durability of that factor. So all those factors, the multiple factors will come under to say that the method that we used was reliable. And if it was reliable in past, it could be reliable for future as well. So that is emphasized in this point. Yeah. So there we come to the end of demand forecasting. If you have any queries or any questions related to demand forecasting, please write down in the comment section. That's it for now. Thank you.